Kinetic explosions and fire leave visible trails of destruction, but a lethal dose of ionizing radiation strikes the human body in absolute silence, without leaving a single scratch on the room around you. An intense event manifests through a sudden wave of heat, a metallic taste on the tongue, or a distinct, eerie blue glow in the air, known as Cherenkov radiation. A dose of more than 0.7 grays, the standard unit for absorbed ionizing energy, delivered to the whole body in a matter of minutes, triggers acute radiation syndrome. We absorb tiny amounts of background radiation every day from the soil and the sun. Our cells constantly repair that minor wear and tear without issue. A massive acute exposure overwhelms that biological repair system instantly. As soon as the exposure ends, a biological countdown clock starts ticking inside the victim's cells, long before they feel sick. Acute radiation syndrome acts completely differently from a viral or bacterial pathogen. It is a direct physics event that physically dismantles your cellular blueprints, turning time itself into the enemy. Ionizing radiation carries enough energy to strip electrons from atoms as it passes through human tissue. This creates highly volatile molecules, known as reactive oxygen species. These volatile molecules, alongside the direct radiation tracks, crash into our DNA. They cause clustered breakages, snapping the sugar-phosphate backbones of the double helix in tight groupings that the cell cannot piece back together. The body detects the systemic damage immediately. Within minutes to hours, it triggers an intense defensive reaction of severe nausea and vomiting. Clinicians call this the prodrome phase. In emergency medicine, the exact time a patient starts vomiting acts as a critical diagnostic marker. If these violent symptoms appear in under an hour, the patient has absorbed a massive, likely fatal dose. Following this violent sickness, the symptoms abruptly stop. For days or even weeks, the victim feels completely healthy. This period is the latent phase. They feel fine because the mature, fully formed cells currently circulating in their bloodstream and lining their stomach are still functioning exactly as they should. But radiation targets rapidly dividing tissue. The stem cells inside the bone marrow, which are responsible for generating tomorrow's blood and immunity, are destroyed. The body is producing zero replacement cells. This total halt in cellular production creates the walking ghost phenomenon. The victim is awake and conversing, but biologically doomed as soon as their current supply of circulating cells reaches the end of its natural lifespan. When those mature cells finally die of old age, the latent phase breaks. The body undergoes a rapid, cascading systemic collapse. The severity of this collapse depends on the specific radiation dose absorbed. Exposures between 0.7 and 10 grays trigger hematopoietic or bone marrow syndrome. Without functioning bone marrow to replace dying cells, white blood cell and platelet counts plummet. The patient loses all defense against routine infections and the ability to clot internal bleeding. Doses climbing between 6 and 30 grays initiate gastrointestinal syndrome. The cells lining the human intestines constantly shed and regenerate. Without that regeneration, the intestinal wall simply sloughs off, causing severe dehydration and bacterial sepsis. At extreme exposures over 30 grays, the damage overwhelms the central nervous system. Neurovascular syndrome sets in, causing severe disorientation, loss of consciousness, and death in a matter of hours. This chart shows exactly how ARS scales with exposure. The specific mechanism of human biological failure is dictated with mathematical precision by the volume of energy absorbed. Once a patient crosses these biological thresholds, modern medicine has severe limitations. Any whole-body dose above 8 grays is almost universally fatal. Clinical intervention for ARS is entirely supportive. Physicians administer blood transfusions and heavy antibiotics to fight off infection, hoping to buy the body enough time to potentially repair its own DNA. Because the medical treatments are so limited, survival depends entirely on physics and prevention. Nuclear safety engineers operate on a guiding principle known as ALARA. ALARA stands for as low as reasonably achievable. It dictates every defensive engineering protocol used to mitigate ionizing energy. The protocol relies on 3 primary survival tactics: minimizing time in a radioactive environment, maximizing distance from the source, and inserting dense protective shielding. When emergency responders need full mobility, they use targeted partial shielding. Wearing heavy lead-lined belts around the pelvic area protects a concentrated reserve of bone marrow, preserving enough stem cells to eventually repopulate the body. Mastering these prevention protocols is mandatory for the future of human spaceflight. Astronauts on crewed missions to Mars will travel for months outside the protective shield of Earth's magnetic field, directly through deep space cosmic radiation. Acute radiation syndrome exposes our deepest biological vulnerabilities. It demonstrates exactly what occurs when raw atomic energy shuts down the cellular machinery that keeps us alive.